welcome to the Asatru Folk Assembly's podcast, Victory Never Speaks. Victory Never Sleeps. Wow. First day filling in for the Alsherjargothi and I already can't talk. Welcome everyone to the podcast. I have with us Goði Lane Ashby from Nords Hof district, our newest ordained Gothar of the Asatru Folk Assembly. Welcome, Lane.
Ahoy there.
So I wanted to start off tonight talking a little bit about the dedication at Nords Hof. It was a real special event for the AFA and especially a special event for you. Can you give us a little information on how that went?
It went extremely well. We had an amazing turnout, people from across the country, not just leadership, but membership coming from far and wide to share in this historic moment with us.
And how did that feel personally for you? I know it's been a long, long road, obtaining Nords Hof and getting up to that dedication. How did that feel when that weekend finally came?
It was a little surreal, I have to admit. After all the hard work that everybody has put in, we've got a great team down here in the Nords Hof district, and everybody was pitching in. We put a lot of effort in, and having it come to fruition and see the mural, have our Alsherjargothi there with us, it was amazing.
What was the Alsherjargothi's first reaction to the mural when he came in?
He was impressed. Many people have said that Svan's outdone himself, and he really has. The figure of Njordur was amazing. The breadth of the mural is something pictures really don't do it justice. You really need to come down and see this one in person. It's quite the panoramic view. Lots of hidden items. The sons and daughter, of course, of Njordur's there, his wife, and some other little trinkets as well. It's beautiful to behold.
And it's a 3-wall mural. Is that correct?
Yes, 3 panels. There's 2 side panels that kind of angle out from the main view. When Svan came by on Friday, or actually Thursday, we kind of runs together. He came by, and I mentioned that it seems like every time I looked at the mural that week, that the Sonnenrad and the trident, the gold pieces, seemed to be brighter and brighter each day, like it was building for something, and it didn't disappoint.
That's great to hear. I know the mural is always a very special surprise when we dedicate a Hof. And that one I have heard is absolutely magnificent. And I'm so proud of Witan Svan Harald for that. Like I said, it's he's done all the murals that we have at all of our Hofs, Odin's Hof, Thor's Hof, Baldur's Hof, and now Njord's Hof. And it's really special to watch those come together. And it's also very hard not to share that, with everybody until it's done. Did you get to witness any of the mural painting itself?
Yes, I did. I did make it up one of the nights that he was there doing the painting to help get the Wi-Fi working, and I got to spend some time with him in the process. It was. Wish I could have done it more.
So the journey to Nords Hof was a little bit interesting and long. How did you really keep yourself motivated and keep the folk down in Florida motivated for this past weekend to finally come to fruition?
Oh yeah, it was quite the roller coaster ride. I think the disappointments, the setbacks, if nothing else, motivated us more. It made us even more determined to make this happen for Njordur, and I think that he played a part in that, because some of the earlier Hofs that we looked at, some of the earlier properties, quite frankly, weren't as good as this one. So, it truly did work out for the best, without a doubt.
Well, we have the ability to ask questions on YouTube and on Entropy. So if you could plug that link up there, if you log into Entropy, you can go ahead and give us a donation if you like. Also ask a question, and we will get that put up there. If you have any questions for myself or Lane, you can go ahead and visit that site, log in there, and ask your questions. Lane, it was a really good weekend for you, and you had the opportunity to be not just amongst your folk, but to become a real leader for your folk. Can you tell me about your ordination, your thoughts, and what went through your mind?
It was a surprise to say to say the least. Alsherjargothi, I know that he likes to do that, but I did not see that coming at all. It was quite a shock. I was I noticed we had a video of it. I noticed I stuttered a few times and stumbled. Just a lot of emotion. Hearing all of the leadership's toasts. It was quite a moving experience, and I'm so proud. I couldn't be happier and more honored than to serve our folk in the AFA.
We're honored to have you here, and we're all looking forward to see what you do for your folk and what you accomplish in the future. So welcome to the ranks of the Gothar, my friend. It's very well deserved. You really are one of our best.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you since you're our newly ordained Gothi. Could you just let our folk that are listening in and watching on Entropy and YouTube, could you give us a little information about what our Gothar do for the Asatru Folk Assembly and for our folk as well?
Certainly, our Gothar's main role is as a spiritual guidance. We help our folk connect with the divine. We also mentor the folk builders across the country and specifically in our districts. We also perform counseling, religious rites such as baby namings, funerals, marriages.
Absolutely. One thing I always really definitely want people to know is just because the you don't have a Gothar nearby doesn't mean that we can't help you out. Doesn't mean you can't contact us. We don't have to be in the same state. You can speak to any of our Gothar at any time. The Gothar serve the Asatru Folk Assembly, so they are all available at your needs. So make sure you contact us with any needs that you might have, any questions on rituals or rites that need to be done, information on the Hofs, as we do have several of them around the 4 Hofs that we have, as well as just any questions in general that you might have about the Asatru Folk Assembly. We do have a few questions. Pam McClaskey asked, for Lane, what are you looking forward to most as a Gothi?
Oh, what am I looking forward to most as a Gothi? Well, I've through necessity, we didn't have any Gothar in Florida for the longest time. So I have, like I said, by necessity, I've been performing that function as best as I could for our folk. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to be a part of the program, is to make sure that I was doing it to the best of my ability and in accordance with the AFA. I didn't want to just be flying by the seat of my pants and doing anything incorrectly. So I was honored when I was accepted into the program, and I look forward to continuing that role. I'll be honest, I really look forward to my first hand fasting.
Excellent. Tony, King of Cheese asks, sure, I've got a question for the both of you. How are you both doing tonight? Well, I hope. Well, as a matter of fact, Tony, I'm doing excellent tonight. What about you, Lane? How are you doing?
Doing well, excited. I think I'm still running on the adrenaline from the dedication.
That'll happen. That'll definitely happen. That time with the folk and the time in the Hof will definitely leave its mark and good feelings all around for quite a while afterwards. Lane, I think this one's for you. This one is from Sarah, and she also has a donation for us of $3. Thank you very much, Sarah. And she asks, are there any alligators in the ponds at Nords Hof?
We have not seen any, but I have been told by a golf instructor when we first moved here that if there's water, there are gators. But we haven't seen any.
So my question for you is, what is your contingency plan for the alligators, Gothi?
Give them a wide berth.
Sarah also has another question specifically for you, sir. She says, Lane, what has your personal journey to the AFA been like?
It's been magnificent. I have been a solo practitioner for many years before I even thought to find a group. And when I was looking, there was no comparison. It was definitely the Asatru Folk Assembly. Most groups or organizations, you could tell they defined themselves by what they weren't. The AFA was the only one that defined themselves by what they are, what they stand for, and what they're for. It was a very positive experience from the very beginning.
Another question for you, Lane. They're coming in pretty strong here for you tonight. It's from Amber C, and she asks, "Congrats, Goði Lane. Question: what are some goals for Nords Hof?"
Short term, just doing some beautification. We've been very fortunate that there's not a lot of needful repairs at our location. We have a lot of land. We sit on 5 acres at Nords Hof, so we've got a lot of potential for growth. We definitely see a fellowship hall down the road, an outdoor ritual space as well. But right now we'll be focusing on beautifying the Hofs, getting our gables up, getting those Nords Hof colors decked out, get the hall decked out in those Nords Hof colors for sure.
Awesome. And Pam asks, "Lane, what, if anything, are you nervous about with your new position?"
Scheduling, time management.
And that's always a big factor, trying to find the time to do all the things and create all the things and perform all the rituals. And at the Hof, scheduling is always difficult, but it's always enjoyable.
And we've got a great team of Gothar down here with us as well. Gothar's Anna and Jason Plord and Trent East. It's an amazing team.
Absolutely. Some of our best down in Florida. So I do have a question for you about Nords Hof. I am always the inquiring mind when it comes to what you had to build, what you want to build. What did it look like the first time that you walked in? What were your initial thoughts the first time that you walked into the building?
Initial thoughts were, like I mentioned earlier, that it was in really good shape. I mean, short of, converting it from a Pentecostal church to a temple to one of our gods, there wasn't a lot of work that had to be done. We did take on some beautification since, like I said, there wasn't a lot of physical work that needed to be done. But it was just amazing how well laid out the Hof was. Kitchen area is a little tiny. It's probably 4 foot by 5 foot. We call it the kitchen closet. But our cooks did an amazing job at the dedication. The meals were outstanding. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, a pair of breakfasts. It was a couple of dinners. It was they did such an amazing job. The timing and quality of food. We couldn't have asked for more.
I know after a dedication or event at a Hof, it's hard to mention everybody and it's hard to thank anybody or everybody. But is there anyone in particular that has been amazing or outstanding or a help and benefit for having them there? I know they all are, but are there any superstars that you'd like to point out to us tonight?
Well, apart from the Gothar that I've already mentioned, I would have to say Pam McCloskey, our recently oathed-in kindred member. We had the honor of oathing her in to our kindred at the dedication as well. Well deserved. She has been instrumental, been at every event there, helping out, helping scheduling things, working with the cooking. Her and Mike Joyner and his wife Katie did an amazing job. But yeah, Pam is she's a star. She's a rock star for sure.
Awesome. I heard raves and compliments and gushing from everyone that I talked to this past weekend about how amazing the food was. The Alsherjargothi was so happy with the quality of food and the amount of food. I mean, that's important to all of us, but food and feasting is a very, very important part of what we do. It brings us together. I would like to know what you guys ate, just because it's important to me, and I'm just curious because I'm one of the few. I'm the only Witan that didn't make it this weekend, Lane, and I apologize for not being there, but I heard all about the food.
This is going to take some time. There was a lot of it. I'll try to remember everything. The first dinner that we had was just, we kept it pretty light that first night with just the leadership. But the next morning they kicked it off with an amazing sausage and cheese. I think it was, I don't know if it was a quiche but what it was. Oh, it was so delicious. We had sausages, many different kinds of fruits to choose from. Lunch, we had we had 3 different kinds of sausages, all handmade by Mike Joyner. Rice dishes. We had chicken. We had, of course, the star of the show was the fish gumbo, with shrimp and crab, and that was delicious. We also had chicken for some people, for anybody there that was allergic to shellfish or didn't like seafood. So everybody was accommodated. We had desserts. We had bread pudding. Marvelous cookies by Githia Anna. She had her famous cookies that appear at every event. We would know what to do without those.
She is incredible. She used to make us the most delicious cookies and desserts at Baldur's Hof. And when she comes back to visit, she hasn't been told yet, but she can be told now. So she'll have to definitely bake for us. For those who don't know, she does amazing in the kitchen. She makes the most wonderful cookies, and she really puts a lot of her energy into it, and they're magical. They're amazing. Tanner has a question for us. Brandy and Lane, what is your favorite flavor of mead, and why is it apple cinnamon?
Oh, I don't know that mine is apple cinnamon. I'm more of a melomel person myself. I do like a standard a straight honey mead, but the cranberry, elderberry. The first real mead that I had was actually brewed by Jason Plord at the 2018 Ostara in the South, I believe. Until then, I'd been drinking store-bought mead, and when I had that, it was like, oh, so this is what mead is really supposed to taste like. Kind of moment, and I bought every one that he had, and enjoyed that. And then a couple of years ago, my wife got me a brewing kit, so I've started brewing my own mead as well.
Can you give us kind of a rundown on importance of mead, and also is there anything special that you do in the brewing process, whether if it's for ritual or drinking, or if there's a difference?
Well, I pretty much only brew it for ritual. I don't drink a lot outside of that. But the importance of it is the conduit. It is the laguz that we use to transfer our offerings to the gods, and that we use to receive. It's integral to the gifting cycle. Mead is tested to in many of the sagas, and but you don't, of course, if you don't have access to mead, or you don't drink, there's many different forms that can be used. Milk, honey itself, even water. For our bloat to Nords that we've been doing for 7 years now, we do that on the beach, and we actually use seawater to receive the blessing, and to pass that along to the members.
That's really interesting. The seawater to be the receptacle of the gifts of the god. That's really it's brilliant, Lane. It really is.
Thank you.
So for those who may just be starting out in Asatru, do you have any recommendations for how they would start their offerings to the gods and goddesses, or to their ancestors, or to the Vaitirs? Is there any recommendations that you would have for them just starting that gifting cycle?
Well, just starting, keep it simple. set out something. It could even be, for instance, for Freyfax, if you're setting something out for Freyr, it could be the loaf of bread that you set out. Any type of food, preferably something that you've cooked yourself, that you've put effort into it. One of the things that I like to do when I make something, for instance, the hammer, I'll save the shavings from the carving and use that as an offering to symbolize the effort. And this goes the same with with your food offerings. It's something that you've cooked. Your effort going into that is part of the gift.
Mm-hmm. When I first started out in Asatru, one of the first things that I did, I like to write poetry, terrible poetry, but writing a poem specifically for one of the gods or goddesses or to my ancestors, I used to do that, and then I would burn that as an offering, because that was my creativity, my work, my time, the time spent trying to make the calligraphy perfect specifically for them. We do also have members that will do woodworking specifically as an offering. They'll do a carving for a specific god and goddess and offer that to honor one of the gods and goddesses as well. So there's always interesting ways. You just got to be creative about how you can start that gifting cycle with the gods and goddesses or to your ancestors. My grandparents loved coffee. They drank coffee from sun up until probably 6 o'clock in the evening. So I've always used coffee for them if I'm doing offerings with a morning cup of coffee or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, we look at it, they are our most distant ancestors. So it's much like, that gift that you get from a child, that's that handmade card. It's all the more special than something bought at a store.
Yes, definitely. We have a question from Storm Chase Mike. Ask Lane how it will be now being our new Goði, how it will impact your life outside the Hof. So how will being a Goði impact your life outside of the Hof?
Well, like I said, I've been performing the role unofficially, because we had no leadership. I was as a folk builder, because at that time that was the highest ranking person in Florida. Mm-hmm. So I think it will. I don't know how it will impact it. Maybe just getting to do more things. Maybe now, like I mentioned, the hand fasting that I look forward to. That was something that I would even though I was doing I would not have done that. I would have made sure that there was an actual. We did an actual Gothi here, so I think that will be the biggest thing. Although that's not outside of the Hof, so I'm dodging the question. I don't know. I think one of the things that I took particularly from Sheila's interview last week was she'd mentioned the balance, and that's something that I will work very hard on, finding the balance between personal life and my duties as a Gothar.
Mm-hmm. The balance is very important. Sarah asks, the motto for Nords Hof district is the harshest winds make the strongest wood. Could you speak on what that means to you personally and to our folk?
Well, it means a lot. There's a lot of tie-in, I think, with the and I didn't come up with that, by the way. That was something on one of our live chats with our Alsherjargothi. Somebody threw that in the chat, and I'm like, that's really good. We ran it by the rest of the leadership, and everybody thought it was a good one. It means many things here in Florida, being the hurricane center for North America. It seems harsh winds we are the land of harsh winds. Our hero is Raud the Strong, so the strength is there. But I think it's through trial, through difficulties, we become stronger and better people. A life of ease does not build a strong foundation.
Great. Son of Woden gave us a $10 donation and a message. Hail Njord, hail the AFA. Thank you very much for your donation. We appreciate that very much. Tracy Adler asks, Lane, what are some of your personal book recommendations?
Well, here we go. Culture of the Teutons. I've read that 3 times. Our first study group was reading that. It really gives you a flavor for the sagas. Helps you understand how they speak, the use of kennings, the importance of honor, of frith. It's invaluable. Uh, it's definitely one that I go back to time and time again. It's so beaten up, dog-eared, highlighted, underlined, notes in the sides. It's like an old friend at this point.
Those are the best books. Those are the best books to loan people as well, as long as they come back afterwards.
Absolutely. Another one is Germanic Heathenry by James Coulter. That's a very good book, not quite as in depth, but has a lot of very good information, particularly around like house rights, the Husinga and the Taterman, the land rights and the house rights. It is a little tricky. They do use the German terms for everything as opposed to the Norse, so there's a bit of a translation uh, going on there. But it goes into at the end. It goes into ritual specific items, much like Deep Ancestors. Another book that I can't recommend enough.
Yeah, that book is excellent.
And anything by Hilda Ellis Davidson. She is a research beast. You read a book of hers and you realize there's 10 other books that she references that you may not have even ever heard of before, let alone read.
Mm-hmm. Tanner asks, Brandy Lane, what sort of work do you guys do with runes? Do you have a daily routine, for example, or have you delved deeper into the subject, i.e. Thorson? Lane, I'll let you take that one first.
I have read Futhark and Alu, and I was gifted several of his books by our law speaker at the dedication. So I'm looking forward to getting into those. I definitely do have a routine in the morning. Um, before I start work, after I get back from the gym, I will draw a rune, meditate on that Galder, and perform my morning ritual, my morning prayer.
So I don't tend to use runes necessarily for divination or anything like that, but I do use them as a guidance. So I'll pull a rune either at my ancestor altar or my main altar, and then I will just focus on what that message is meant to give me for that particular day. I tend not to do divination with runes. I do try to go through the rune steps once a year and take them and evaluate my own personal spiritual practice and Asatru in general, and check in with myself and say, okay, so where am I at? What is my belief? Where am I? What have I taken from the lore lately? Do I still see this rune in the exact same way? I do take the time to meditate with that. I also like to do, when I first started learning the runes, I used a process for touch where I actually traced the runes on paper and then poked holes in them. And I would meditate while running my finger over the raised paper like Braille, just to help me as a sensory assistant there. And I'll still do that when I go back through the runes and check and then see if there's any way that I feel differently about them, or if there's any other messages that I feel that I could benefit from with those.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd like to try something like that as well. I don't use them for divination either, but I will. I write them on my calendar each
Mhm.
day that I do, and I do like to go back and kind of just look at the month, the weeks, and you know, see the patterns there, and see if if sometimes you may get a meaning from the rune itself, but in the context of what you pulled that week or that month, it may shift its meaning or emphasize it depending on what else you're pulling. I was pulling Kinaz and Durazaz a lot, back to back, even 3 times. Those 2 runes 3 times within a week, and I got to thinking, about, okay, this is, that of course, Kinaz, the transformation through fire, going through the Gothar program, getting the Hof, that was clear, and Thurazaz, grabbing the thorns, not just being comfortable within them, but actually grabbing them and using them against the evil and chaos of the world.
We also do use the rune Wunyo at Baldur's Hof, specifically in our start to rituals. That's something that we do. And I do believe Anna Plord has done this for you guys over at Nords Hof as well. We'll actually comb the rune Wunyo as part of our ritual to bring our people together with, joy and frith and unity. So that's something that we do specifically at Baldur's Hof. And I also do use that more of a Galder, though, when I'm doing crafts or something that's related to thread work, rather than watching TV or listening to a book or something like that. I'll actually Galder one of the runes while I'm creating something, especially if it's specifically for an individual. Things that I want to put into that craft or that blanket or that project that I'm working on. Yeah. Ryan Orenson Wiltonson. Question: do the Gothis and Githias learn the deeper meaning of the myths? Indo-European comparative mythology study, for example. What about astrotheology? Go ahead, Lane. I'll let you start with that one.
Yes, we definitely do comparative studies. The deep ancestors, for example, it does look more into the Indo-European side of things and touches on the Vedic. Something else I'm interested in learning more about in this process as well.
One thing I do want to add about when we look into the deeper meaning of myths, it's very easy to ask a Gothi or a Githia for the deeper meaning of lore, but I'm a very, very firm believer as well that you will always get the message from the lore that you need at that time. You can read any of our lore, anything in the Eddas, and you'll get something different every time. You'll understand something a little bit differently. You'll pick up on something that you didn't see before. And I'm a firm believer that you get those in the times that you need them the most, or the times that you're most ready to understand them.
I couldn't agree more. When I first started, the first lore that I read was the Heimskringla. And, looking back, that is the book that I needed to read, because I came at it from a very Huhemerist point of view. They say that, that was used to lead our folk away from the gods. Well, the gate goes both ways. And for me, I wasn't ready to accept them as divine beings at that time. If I'd read anything else, I may not have continued on the path. So you're absolutely right. You get what you need when you need it.
When you need it. And when you're ready. Tony King of Cheese, he wants you to repeat the name of the book. What was that book again? Sorry, the one talking about the housewives and such. He wants to look for it.
Germanic Heathenry. It is no longer in print, but you can find it out there. But yeah, it's Germanic Heathenry by James Coulter.
Thank you, sir. Tanner Anderson asks, you mentioned in brief a main altar and an ancestor's altar. Do you mind expanding on this? I find this especially interesting as someone who ran out of space at one altar, and I like that idea a lot. Lane, I think I'm going to let you take that first. Do you have any altars set up at your home that you would like to describe a little bit?
Sure. I actually, my main ritual space, if you will, is outside. I have a ring of pine trees that I've planted, that I galder over, and they're growing nicely. One of them's almost over my head. But my indoor altar has 3 levels. And the first level is my indoor ritual space. And then the second level is my ancestors. And then the top level is the gods. So I've got it set up in that Ewaz sort of pillar to the between the gods and Midgard, with the ancestors there in the middle.
Sure. So I have a main altar, and I have a space for ancestors specifically. So my main altar is pretty big, and I don't like clutter on things, so my altar is pretty sparse. I have my bare minimum of things that I have. I have my horn, a specific a cup that I use for offerings to the goddess Saga. I have a bowl. I also have on there a spool of roughly woven together thread and a pair of ritual scissors on that. I like to work with thread a lot when I'm, stressed out, have things to work through. I'll tie knots in it and undo them. To me, that's working out, the knots in my weird and in my tapestry. And then I do have a few separate bowls that are for ancestors or Vatir. And I also have one little spot that's got its own bowl, its own incense. It has a postcard from one of our recently departed members on it. And that's where I give my ancestors their specific space. And then I have my ritual space, which is for the Vatir as well as for the gods and goddesses. I also do have little, I wouldn't necessarily call them altars, but little spots in my home that are for the Vatir. I have a spot outside that's for the land Vatir, and I have one in my house that's for my house Vatir. So I do have just little spots kind of set up all over the place. I have a little spot just in my computer area that I use when I'm working with creativity, or if I get stuck writing on a project or something like that. I have a spot for an offering for someone in particular there. So I kind of just have little pods of worship set up around the house in different areas.
It's not so much for worship, but we do leave our nutcrackers out year round.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that Coulter talks about in Germanic heathenry, is that as we left having hearths in our homes, and the stove kind of became that central place, and that nutcrackers were a home for the Husinga.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was first starting out in Asatru, and I had a big, beautiful, elaborate altar, and I had all the statues, and I had all the candles, and I had all the bowls, and it was just overflowing with things. Every beautiful rock that I found on a walk or something like that, I put it on my altar, and it really, to be honest, got to be a lot. And I found that my spiritual practice and my worship of the gods and the goddesses and of my ancestors has actually become more meaningful as I've scaled back down. Now, I can't speak for everybody, but for me personally, I found as I've decluttered that space and really focus on myself and my own personal worship and the offering that I'm giving, that the things around me, I was able to put them away until I really needed them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. A cluttered with I was just saying about a cluttered desk,
Mm-hmm.
for work. It's the same. I'm sure it's the same concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still have all those things. Don't get me wrong. You accumulate a lot of things over the years, but I tend to just bring them out when I want to use them in particular. And I think it was just me being overzealous and wanting to have all the things for all the reasons. But yeah, I really like the decluttered space that I've got. It's just a lot easier, I think, for me spiritually to work with. Also, Tanner, you mentioned that you're kind of short on space. One thing I've seen a lot of people do, and some of our Gothar do as well, is they'll actually make layered altars, shelves. You have your main altar, but you may also have bookshelves that you can hang on it, or regular shelves that you can hang above it, making tiered altars. I've also seen some of my personal friends that have used those little cubes, the 6 cube where you can put baskets in, but they don't have baskets. They just have little pods for different gods and goddesses. So there's always ways to get creative with space, and definitely reach out to your folk. If you're on any of those MeWe groups, throw that up in the groups, and, ask to see if anybody has any pictures they'd like to share with you, about how they've managed their space and how they've, for example, like me, accumulated way too much stuff and had to put it away, or how they're stacking their altars or moving them around the house. Tony King of Cheese asks, Brandy and Lane, what are your thoughts on culturally specific practices as far as the AFA is concerned? My heritage is largely Scottish, for example, but the AFA is largely Germanic in practice, which I understand. But what do you think about incorporating practices from our heritage into our worship and practice. Do you think there are any issues with that, or that it could cause problems? Forgive the wall of message. No problem, Tony King of Cheese. Lane, why don't you go ahead and take that one first?
Sure. Well, we definitely want to incorporate our heritage. That's kind of the whole point. Once you start doing that, I think though you'll see that a lot of there's more similarities than differences between them. The names may change, locations may change, but the themes are the same. And that I think that's the whole point. You know, from the British Isles and Ireland all the way to the Slavic countries and the Caspian Sea and the Baltic Sea. The themes are the same. The stories are the same. I don't like to say that they're the same gods with different names. I see them more as cousins. They have the same functions, but they're not necessarily the same deity. I like to keep let our gods be our gods.
There's a lot of, we are Europeans. We are all one folk. So if you have your Slavic deities and your Norse deities, your Celtic deities, they're all the way that the Alsherjargothi explains this, and he does it really, really well. He does this really, really well. He says, imagine a table and chairs. They're all made out of the same wood. They're all of the same origin. They may look a little bit different. The names may be a little bit different, but they are all of the same material. They're all the same thing. So as far as the practices of specific cultures and things like that, always remember that our culture is, our music, our food, our gods, our ancestors. Those are all things that we incorporate into Asatru. If your Scottish grandparents may have appreciated maybe some music, you can give that as an offering when you're giving your dedications. Definitely use those cultural things into what you're doing. And especially when you're doing, ancestor worship, those are things that your ancestors would recognize, whether it's the music or a specific food, those are things that they would recognize and appreciate. Corey asks, I think a library bookshelf at each Hof or some sort of book exchange would be a really cool idea. Thoughts? What do you think, Lane? Book exchange at Nords Hof?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We were gifted our first book from Michelle Reynard. She brought down a nice children's book, so we've got our first entry to the library.
Excellent. And Corey, I know there's a lot of people probably have some extra books laying around, and I definitely think that's something that you could coordinate with Baldur's Hof. So I would say reach out to Nathan Erlandson at Baldur's Hof and talk to him about that kind of project and see if that's something that you can get taken care of. Tracy Adler asks, Lane, aside from Nords Hof dedication, of course, was there ever any AFA, a favorite AFA event or bloat for you, local event or national events?
National event would have to be Ostara in the South, 2020. Yeah, 2020. Alsherjargothi did that was the last Odin's bloat that he did at Ostara. Now he does a Thor bloat since it's at Thor's Hof. But that Odin's bloat was amazing. It was moving. It woke the forest.
Mm.
Local event. It's our beach bloat in York. We love that. We love being there hearing the crashing waves, the salt air. And giving honor to our divine ship captain.
Finn Wraithaus, I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Oh, Finn Wraith, does the AFA encourage reading other myths from Europe like the Greek Odyssey or the Finnish Kalevala? Read them all. Read all of them. Read everything. Absorb everything. Enjoy everything. Read them all.
I joke I'll have to be buried with my books in order to finish everything that I have already.
Do you have a book problem there, Lane?
I do.
I do.
Proud of it.
Yes. I had a problem when I moved. I had to leave some of the books behind. So I had to be very careful about what I was going to take with me, and I had to prioritize my books, and that's a lot harder than it sounds.
That sounds downright painful.
It is. It is, between books for personal reading and entertainment, and books for, education, and books for Asatru. I came with like 6 boxes of books, and we had to put a stop to the number of boxes that were going into the U-Haul. So
the trick I learned is you cannot have too large of book boxes because they get heavy fast.
They do. I made the mistake of storing a very large box of books in a cardboard box in a basement at one point in time, and they were very much destroyed in a flood. So yes, definitely if you're storing your books, tip of the day, put those into a plastic tote of some sort. They're easier to carry and they're easier to store. We did receive a $10 donation from Derek Tidwell. Hail. Thank you very much, Derek. That is very much appreciated. Dan M asks, which god or goddess has guided your path the most? Lane, would you like to take that one first?
Sure. When the question that often comes up, who's your patron god? And I would always say that I just worship all the gods, depending on what was needed. But the last time it was actually in Telegram, and I think it was Stephen McNallen was commenting on it while he was on there, and he made me think, well, maybe I do, and I come to realize, I found the Asatru on the Pacific coast, on the shores in California, in San Diego, and I found the AFA here on the East Coast, on the shores of the Atlantic. And every major spiritual moment that I've had, the ocean's been there. So, and the first public bloat I did was to Njord in 2017. So he's, whether I realized it or not, his hand's been on the helm.
Mm-hmm. I myself was pretty partial to Saga, as well as Bragi for a long time. Again, I worship all the gods and goddesses every day, but I was pretty partial to them. But especially since the opening of Baldur's Hof, and my ordination as the Githia for Baldur at that Hof, I've really, being closer isn't necessarily the right word. My personal dedication to Baldur and to Nana has definitely grown. And I think that's natural for Gothar who are attending altars of specific gods and goddesses at the Hofs. Now, we do worship and honor them all, but we tend to spend a lot of time specifically with those gods or goddesses, are the gods of the Hofs and the associated goddesses there. Tracy Adler asks, Lane, how important is physical fitness to you, and is physical fitness part of the Gothar program?
It's very important. It's not. I don't think it's not officially part of the Gothar program, but I think that everybody that participates realizes, part of the body is part of the soul complex. You can't be healthy in one without being healthy in the others. They're all interactive. You can't be healthy spiritually if as healthy spiritually you can be, but not. It's impacted if you're not healthy physically or mentally, or ego or wit. It all ties in together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, sir. Tanner asks, gotta ask every show, do either of you have any advice for young Asatru who are looking to meet someone and start a family? Yes. Join the AFA, meet someone, and start a family. That is my best advice. As far as the steps to get there, I'm always going to give the same advice of be the best that you can be. Be the best you that there is to offer that person. If there's something that you need to overcome or you need to work on that and concentrate on that. The rest will follow. So be the best you that you can be. Join the AFA, meet a meet a spouse and start a family. What about you, Lainey? Any advice for our young folk looking?
I agree. I would just add excellence draws excellence. So like Brandy said, be the best that you can be, and you will draw the best to you.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of young Asatru, Lane, could you tell us a little bit about your journey to discovering the gods of your folk and what that looked like?
Well, it was an odd path. It started with philosophy. Oddly enough, I watched a movie called A Fish Called Wanda, and in it, Kevin Kline's character misquotes Nietzsche often, and at the end he gets called on it, and that kind of intrigued me. So I started reading it, and that one thing led to another, and I started listening to classical music and going to the orchestra, and just engulfing myself in our culture. And that is how I came, and that eventually led, of course, to the gods themselves, the progenitors of our culture.
Mm-hmm. What did those first few years as an Asatru look like for you?
Oh, just consuming as much as possible. Just a ravenous hunger to learn more, because it was all so new. It's like something that had been hidden, that or lost, that you had and you've been looking for, but you didn't realize it. Of my best friend from high school, when we lived in California, we made a blood brother pact, thinking, oh, Native American, but why didn't we know of our own ritual? And that just it saddened me, and just made me hunger for learning more. It's like, what could we do if we had this growing up, and now we get to see our children growing up in the faith, and having this as a foundation, not something that they have to search for later in life. It's such an amazing thing to see.
Mm-hmm. If there was any advice that you would have for someone who is stumbling upon this path for the first time and they're not quite sure where to start, what would you recommend as that stone that you need to step on first? Is there any recommendations that you have for someone who's just finding what we're doing?
I would say, like we mentioned earlier, start with the ancestors. A simple shrine, communicate with them. A lot of people do that already. They don't realize that it is a ritual practice. People will talk to their dearly departed, and if either at a gravesite or just in their daily life, doing something that reminds them, like you'd mentioned, working with thread or something like that. You're doing something that your grandparents did. You talk to them, and you may not realize that is an act of ritual, an act of communication beyond the veil, reaching back to the well to learn. And that simple act is so empowering. Once you're conscious of what you're doing, you realize that, oh yeah, this is natural, and it feels, it doesn't feel like you're something. Well, like I said, a lot of us didn't grow up in this faith, so it's new, but it isn't. We've just disassociated the religiousness from it. Mm-hmm. But we do these practices just by nature.
Tanner asks, Lane, you mentioned philosophy as an early part of your journey. Did any other existentialist philosophy have any influence on you?
I really enjoyed Hess. Hermann Hesse was one of the early things that I read. I've recently been introduced to Evola. I'm surprised I didn't find that sooner with what I was reading, but I really enjoyed reading his as well. Heidegger, by way of Cleary. So that's on my list, is to start delving into some Martin Heidegger.
Folk the Rude gave us a $25 donation. Thank you very much. And he asks, I have been trying to find information on European pre-Christian fasting traditions, but have been unsuccessful. Do you know anything about this?
I can't say that I do. No, I don't know of any fasting traditions of European origin.
I am unfamiliar with that as well, sir, but if you send us an email, laneashby@runestone.org or bcallahan@runestone.org, we will get together with our fellow Gothar and get you an answer. How about that? Tracy Adler asks, Lane, you mentioned the soul complex. How would you describe it? And do you believe having a strong soul complex helps one with their connection to the gods?
I think it helps with everything. I mean, it helps. It helps with your work, with relationships, with. I mean, it literally is what everything you are stems from. So yeah, of course, it would also apply to your connection to the gods for sure.
Absolutely. So at this point, I'm going to ask Nick to go ahead and put up our link for Nords Hof website. And we did speak a little bit earlier about, the Gothar that you can contact and things of that nature. Also on nordshof.com, as well as our other Hof websites there, you can find information on to contact your folk builders. You can contact your Gothar. And there's also a really great spot for all the events that are going on. We regularly post events on there, as well as a calendar. So you can see all the upcoming information on all the events going around in that district. Now, Lane, there always seems to be something going on in Nords Hof, whether somebody is having a moot somewhere or a bloat on the beach. What is your upcoming event at Nords Hof itself?
Nords Hof itself, we have Freyfaxi coming up a week from this Saturday. Next month, we will have our winter finding. In October, of course, winter nights and Yule, our first Yule, and always a big event. We usually roast a whole hog. That's been a tradition that we've done for 3 years now, is roasting a whole hog for Yule. So I'm sure we will carry that on at Nords Hof this year.
And who should they contact if they are interested in attending any of those events at Nords Hof?
They can contact myself, Jason Plord or Anna Plord, as well as our new folk builders, Tracy Adler, Mike Joyner, or Otto Riffus.
Excellent. While we're speaking at events, the reason you all have me tonight is because Alsherjargothi is currently traveling to our national event this weekend at Baldur's Hof, which is the oddly named Fall Fest in August. The name was kept for tradition, but this is going to be an August event. That is going to run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, and it will run until about noon on Sunday. We do have about 65 people so far who have said that they're going to be there. So we're really looking forward to that. It's always a great event. If you have any questions about accommodations, or you need a ride, or looking for somebody you can stay the night with, or see if there's any openings and with anybody, or just any questions in general about what's going to be happening at Fall Fest, you can contact Jason Gallagher at jgallagher@runestone.org. He is our veteran Fall Fest coordinator. He has been a part of Fall Fest since the very first one, and I think we are on year number 7, I believe. Jason will correct me if I'm wrong, because he will know. So yes, please, if you do plan on coming, tickets are available on the store, runestone.org store, and you can find information for tickets at Baldur's Hof under the Baldur's Hof Fall Fest. Also, if you're coming and you want to pay at the door, that's totally fine. Please get a hold of Jason Gallagher if you do intend to do that. This is for members and vouched for guests only, so please get a hold of Jason Gallagher if you plan on paying for your ticket that way. We do have 5 bloats, and super excited about those bloats coming up. Also, we're going to have High Stumble. We've got an auction. We've got Baldur's Ball, and we've got games for the kids, games for the adults, and several discussions and classes that we're going to be teaching. Roy Danton asks, Lane, will there be any chance of being able to attend Yule at both Thor's Hof and Nords Hof?
I don't know what I don't know. I'm not. I'll have to check and see what Thor's Hof's schedule is. We may be. There is a chance they could be happening on the same weekend, since we had this schedule before we had Nords Hof. So we're trying to stick to it for those that had planned time off from work, etc. And it does work out with our schedule. We did have to push Frey Facti back a week because after the national event of having the dedication, everybody kind of needed a week to decompress, and so we did push that back a week. But otherwise, we're on the third weekend of the month throughout the rest of the year.
Fantastic. Roy, if you can reach out to Lane at laneashby@runestone.org, as well as Goði Daniel Young at Thor's Hof, if you are looking for information on the Thor's Hof schedule, you can go ahead and check that. Or you can also take a look at those handy dandy websites for Thor's Hof and Nords Hof and take a look at their schedules there and see that, and see if you are able to make both. And I sure hope that you can. All right. Lane, is there anything that you have to add tonight? Anything that you want to discuss? Anything on your mind that you want to tell your folk tonight?
Just how excited I am for what we have ahead of us. We've got work to do, but we're growing. We have a strong core group, and it's amazing getting to meet new people. Even before the Hof, every week we would have new people at events, and that's what I'm so excited about, is seeing more of our folk come home and getting to share as Witan Erickson says, sharing their inheritance, their birthright.
Mm-hmm. Josh asks, you touched on ego and such, Gothi Ashby. Could you expound on self-introspection and personal growth for the Asatru from your perspectives as spiritual leaders?
It's imperative. It's, Odin sought wisdom. He sacrificed himself to himself, and we have to do the same in order to grow. We sacrifice our time to learn. We sacrifice to better ourselves, and that's not just like we mentioned the physical realm, but in the ego. And ego is a healthy thing. It's not, pride is not a sin to us. It is a healthy thing to have. But on the flip side of that, as most things are dualistic in our faith, from the runes to the gods themselves, you have to know when to let it go. Also, you have to know when to sacrifice that ego for the folk.
Tracy has a question for you. Lane, what is your stance on the Norrena Society and their attempt to make our faith more organized and dogmatic, which most seem to dislike?
I don't have an issue with being dogmatic. I mean, even we have things that we believe, and we have precedents that we carry, and that we are building. I think the difference is between practicing and studying. The theology and theocracy. Are you doing it, or are you learning it? The knowledge is important. It is good, but you have to get out there. You have to commune with the gods. You have to commune with your ancestors and your folk. That's where the magic happens. You can always pick up learning something along the way, but don't think you have to study for 10 years. You have to read this book, that book, or this book to be Asatru. Like we'd mentioned, it's your birthright. Do it. I have a great deal of respect for Mark Prier. He's done a lot of great things, and I do enjoy his take on things, and I do like to read him and converse with him. But the Norrena Society, they're more of a study group to me. They're more focused on the book learning and the intricate translations. And like I said, it's good to have access to that. So I appreciate the work that he does, but I don't think it's the end all and be all. And to be honest, I don't know that he does either. I don't know him personally, but he seems to be a very, from watching him and reading of him, he seems to be a very spiritual man. And I know that he does practice in his personal life.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to sound lecturing because I tend to get on a soapbox on this particular topic, but despite popular belief, whether that is on YouTube or the latest podcasts or the internet sensations, Asatru is not and never will be a solitary practice. It is very difficult to do. If you are stuck in a situation where you don't have anyone to share frith with, you don't have anyone to worship with, you don't have that community, that's something that is very hard to do. Being solitary is very, very difficult to do. Our faith is definitely something that is shared. It is reciprocal with our folk, whether it's building frith, whether it's celebrating a feast, getting out there and actually worshiping the gods and actually practicing Asatru and actually being a doer and getting things done for the gods, for your church, for your folk. That's important to your spiritual path. Just sitting at home reading a book it's going to be real difficult to find the same connection as you would if you had a group of people to share it with. So if you haven't joined the AFA yet, you definitely need to. And you can do that by going to runestone.org and taking a look at that application process. And if you feel the need to continue your spiritual path and really live it with your folk, go apply, talk to a folk builder, reach out to any of the folk builders in your area, and really find that community connection. Because if you're a solitary practitioner of Asatru, that is going to be something that you're not going to find in a book. So please reach out to your folk builders. Please go apply for the AFA and really come home to your folk, come home to your gods, come home to your ancestors.
And you made a good point, Brandy. You said celebration, and that's really what it boils down to. Our faith is a celebration, and you can't celebrate alone. That's you can't have a birthday party by yourself. You need people to celebrate with you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Finn Wraith asks, if we want to join the AFA and attend events in Northern Europe around Scandinavia, who do we contact and what do we do? Good question. So we do actually have a folk builder in Scandinavia. And Nick, if you'd like to put up Eric's email address, you can go ahead and send him an email and get in touch with Eric. I'm going to have a hard time saying your name, my friend. Eric Lugnet. Get a hold of him. He is holding moots and he is very active in the AFA. Even over in Scandinavia, he's always in contact with us over here. He's always trying to bring people together over there, holds events and posts the most beautiful pictures you've ever seen. They are absolutely amazing. So yes, he is very active over there in Sweden. So please get a hold of Eric. He can help you out and get you in touch with other folk that are in your area, all over the place over there. So yes, we definitely do have active AFA folk over there in Northern Europe and Scandinavia. Tanner asks, have you guys seen anything in the Asatru community at large that you're particularly excited about? And is there anything that you'd like to see more of, whether it's music, films, creative stuff, courses, etc.? Yes, I am. I am very excited about several things. The first thing that I'm really, really excited about is the AFA homeschool. I am so excited to see this. The AFA has a youth program, and that has naturally and organically evolved into the Asatru Academy. Goði Robstam has, in his team that he has done an amazing job of putting together a curriculum, and they have got kindergarten enrollment still going down there. It says it ends soon, so get a hold of Goði Robstam. Take a look at the website, asatruacademy.org. Get your child enrolled into that program. I'm super excited about that. We are now raising a generation of young men and women who have the very beautiful ability to be raised in this faith. A lot of us that come to Asatru do so from Christianity or any other religions, or we've tried this or that and it didn't fit, so we finally came home to Asatru. we have the opportunity to raise our children in this faith, to raise our children worshiping our gods, to raise our children within our church and going to Hofs. As the Alsherjargothi says, our children these days will never know what it's like to live in a world that does not have a Hof in it. They will never know that loneliness, or that loneliness that a lot of us have spent as we milled around looking for the AFA, or milled around looking for our community. So that is one of the things that I'm very, very excited about. What about you, Lane? What are you excited about that you see going on?
That as well, and just the excitement I see, even in more secular circles, I've been hearing Asatru mention the gods, the old ways, even talking about our founding fathers. They're always referred to as that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values, but Thomas Jefferson stated that we were founded on pagan Anglo-Saxon law. He wanted the symbol of the United States to be Horst and Hengist, and there's just so much there. They were deists, but they had a strong connection. Ben Franklin, many of his quotes directly parallel lines from the Havamal. His early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's he must early go forth. If he feigned the blood, or the goods of another would get. The idle wolf should win little meat, or the sleeping man's success. I mean, the Second Amendment is literally stated in the Havamal. So, and we're seeing people touch on these points and realize that this is our birthright. This is our connection, and to see it filter more and more into the mainstream, where people that maybe wouldn't come across our podcast or our literature or our website can be introduced to it for the first time, and maybe the ability for even more people to find their way home. It's an exciting time. The Hofs, the Asatru Academy. Just thinking 2035 will be our first graduating class. It seems so soon, so right around the corner. Mm-hmm. It's just exciting. It's hard to contain yourself.
Absolutely. There's so many good things that we've got going on. We've got Fall Fest coming up this weekend. We just opened up our 4th Hof. We're going to keep pushing through until we have another one. These are things that are powerful, and they're exciting, and they're fulfilling. And it's the support of our folk and the competency of our leadership that has really gotten us there. Without the folk that we have as members of the AFA, they're behind making all these things happen just by joining the community, just by taking part in that community, by showing dedication to their church. Our leadership that we have is really pushed hard to move forward in the future, not allowing us to sit still and watch the world pass by us. We're setting the example, and we're forging a way ourselves. If the world catches up with us, great, but we're moving forward. So for each and every member of the Asatru Folk Assembly, know that you are important, and you are a huge part of the reason why this organization is so successful. All these things we do for our gods, and we do for our folk as well. So, always remember that you are part of something forward moving and hard pushing, and something that is just paving the way for, the future that we want to enjoy, but also for the future for all of these children that are graduating in 2035. So every single one of you
aren't even born yet.
Yeah, some of you that aren't even born yet, just the amazing amount, the families that we have, and the beautiful children that, still have not even been born. They're going to be coming into a world that the path is really laid for them. And with our forward motion, they're going to be pushing it even further. We're really setting our children and our children's children up for success, and being a member now, you are directly a part of that. So we can't thank all of you enough, and our leadership enough, but especially our membership. We're doing this for you, and we're doing this with you, and we appreciate all of you. Let's see, Roy Danton sent us a $10 donation. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate that so much. The long drive back from Nords Hof finally gave me time to listen to all the previous episodes in replay, so very powerful and inspiring, especially those questions about how to start practice at home. Having won that custom-made horn at the auction also really inspired me to build an altar. Right, that's great to hear. So, we've talked about this before, that, your first step is really making the start of that gifting cycle. One thing I always want to remind our folk is don't underestimate the power of the home feast. And what I mean by that is gather your family around a table and pass that horn around that you have and hail your god of choice. If it's a day of remembrance is coming up, research that hero and hail them and talk about what you can learn from them. On a Friday night, gather your family together, pass the horn around, and talk about your ancestors, especially if you have children. Tell them the stories about the grandparents that they would never be able to meet. If you have grandparents of your own, go see them and learn from them. Sit with them and share a meal with them and share frith with them and learn about your ancestors, learn about the customs that they had. Some of them, may have only been first, second, or third generation in this country. They have a lot of history for you if you're just willing to listen to them. And you're never going to find a more captive audience than your child. So definitely celebrate around your tables, even if just you and your family pass that horn around that table. Lane, do you have any advice for those, how they can involve their families or anything like that, and what they're doing and how they're getting started with this?
I think, like you mentioned, the meals, blessing the meal, I think is a good way to introduce them to it. We keep mentioning the ancestors. You can never go wrong there. But yeah, I think that is good. And relating the gods and goddesses to everyday things. Air, for example, is because everyone knows someone that's sick or maybe is getting older and struggling. Making offerings to air is who could oppose that. Who could oppose asking a goddess to help their loved ones feel better, to heal faster.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Tracy asks, Lane, it seems like Florida has a lot of women at events. Do you think the female element was important to the growth of the Florida AFA community? How do you get the female members to come out?
Yes, yes, and I think it's a self-perpetuating thing. Um, it's odd because doing some digging, we had 30 people at our Yule last year, which at that time was the largest Florida event. Um, Mandy has said, and we're 50-50. With the children, it was half men, half women, but the membership doesn't reflect that. We're 20 something percent women and 70, I think 70%, 70 something percent men, but the women show up. So that's the challenge to you, men. You're paying your dues. Get to the Hof, get out to an event. The women are definitely outshining you in that respect. They come to events, and the more they do, the more they do, because that's really an introduction. Because everybody knows that's been in this for any time that it was not always that way.
Right. Tracy, for advice on how to get those female members to come out, call them. Call those ladies up in your district, in your local area. Pick them up and bring them. So let them know that this is the place to be and the place to find your sisters and your friends and your family. Yeah, call them, invite them out. They'll never want to go home. They'll always want to come back. Nobody ever wants to actually leave the Hof doors. Nobody wants to walk out ever.
It's the obligatory hour and a half of goodbyes. You
Yes,
have to tack that onto your travel time.
absolutely. Please remember to do that at least an hour and a half travel time. You got to say goodbye to everybody more than once because nobody ever really wants to leave.
Or you can do what I did to Tracy and threaten to hold a bloat on their sidewalk outside their house if they don't
Yes,
come to an event.
absolutely. Tanner asks, what advice would you have for folks with families who outright reject Asatru and whose advice wouldn't be conducive? So my advice to you on this one, always be the example of the best of yourself. Number one, the best of your gods. Number 2, the best of your ancestors and the best of your folk. Always show them the benefits of what you're doing, how it's improved your life, how it's made you a stronger person. Because I have never personally talked to anyone that said I am not a better person since I joined Asatru. I've never once. Every single one of them have that I know personally has taken either the 9 noble virtues, the lessons that they've learned from the lore, um, the discussions that they've had in a group, and taken those and turned them, help turn them into a better, stronger, more industriousness, more passionate person. I've never met anyone that said I shouldn't have done this, it was a bad decision. Everyone always says it feels like coming home. And you'll find the best of yourself if you follow, the advice of the lore, the 9 noble virtues. If you get involved in your community and do beautiful things, you're not going to suffer from that. And your family will see how you're growing if you just show them. Always be respectful. One thing that I've found is if you go out blazing about how they are wrong and you are right, no matter whether, no matter, even if you are right, don't be insulting. You wouldn't appreciate them insulting your religion. Don't do the same to them. Show them the benefits for you personally and for your folk by being a member of Asatru and of the Asatru Folk Assembly. Lane, do you have any advice?
I couldn't agree more. I recently built this bookcase for all our lore, and in the process, it was a learning process. But my wife noted how calm I was, and when things didn't go the way I wanted them to, I did not get upset. I merely adapted and trudged along. She saw that I didn't throw the hammer. I didn't I didn't curse. I figured out what was wrong and how I can fix it, make it better, stronger, whatever. And yeah, be the best, be the example, set the standard.
Absolutely. Tanner asks, on a more fun note, can we get an Asatru country album sooner rather than later? If I was a singer, I would, but you don't want to hear me sing. But I myself would appreciate it as a true country album. So if you know somebody who can write, I think they should reach out to you, Tanner. I personally like dancing, so anything that I can dance to, I'm a little partial to polka. I'm not gonna lie. I like that. So yeah, Tanner, go ahead and write that country album and run it by your Alsherjargothi. I'm gonna give that to you. What about you, Lane? What would you like to see music wise for AFA or these wonderful? It started off with Nords Hof had the Thor's Ball at Ostara, and we're having Baldur's Ball at Fall Fest. What would you like to see with that, Lane? How would you like to see that evolve?
Oh,
Music,
I'm
how we
I'm
use it.
ver- I'm very eclectic musically. I like just about every genre of music, but I like very few people, very few artists in the genre,
Mm.
um, and many. So I could go with anything. I like the bluegrass that Stan was talking about. I really enjoy that. Its roots in the more traditional European folk music. Um, but I like just good old rock music too. Some nice hard driving 70s guitar riffing music. So yeah, I would like to maybe see something like that, something along the lines of our old Zeppelin, Jeff Beck, something along that hard rock epic genre.
Anything that invokes emotion or gets you moving is going to raise the energy, right? Tracy Adler asks Lane, during bloat, an exchange of energies takes place. Blood sacrifice was the means of this exchange. Is Mead, being alive and charged with a life, a suitable sacrifice for proper exchange?
Absolutely, and like we said earlier, so would milk. Milk is another good one. It is lagus. It is life. The yeast in the mead. The milk comes directly from a living animal.
So you had mentioned previously about other offerings that you would recommend. So for those like just starting out, where would you find that and how would you conduct that specific offering? Do you have any advice for our folk just starting out on that?
Sure, if you don't, if you're just starting out and you don't have a horn or something, any bowl, uh, we'd prefer something of an organic nature, either ceramic, wood, or even some kind of hammered metal, something organic, something of a natural nature. Um, if it's going to be manufactured, try to get something that's manufactured by our folk if you can. But if not, you use what you have. The Indo-Europeans traveling across the steppes, they didn't have the convenience. They would use the same bowl that they ate out of for ritual. They would just you just want to cleanse it before ritual to wash away the mundane and to prepare it, and then again clean it again when you're done before you would use it for any mundane uses. But just a bowl to pour the offering in. When you're done, take it out. Pick a tree. Have a tree that you find a special connection with in your yard. Pour it at the base there to release the offering. Or the same could go for hard food, like we mentioned bread as well. The same thing. You take it out, take it outside once it's been on your altar. Take it out to that tree and leave it there. Birds can eat it, and birds carry our messages between our world and the world of the gods.
Mm-hmm. I know Anna Plur does beautiful bloats that involve flowers. She always has the most beautiful flowers, and I know she offers those. And that's just a really beautiful sentiment. She does beautiful things with flowers, and I know she works with those a lot as well. Sierra asks, Lane, aside from obviously oathing in, what was the most memorable part of the dedication for you?
That would be oathing Pam into our kindred.
Ryan Orion, Wotan's son, asks, question, I can't find a good ritual hammer, big one. Where can I order one? You know, I've got some recommendations on that. I would, check Etsy and check the buyer and make sure that you're going to support that specific buyer. Also, as far as a big ritual hammer, I have seen people make ritual hammers out of some really interesting things, whether it was wood that they carved. I've actually seen people, they found an old blacksmith hammer and wrapped it with leather and made a beautiful hammer out of that. Lane, what do you think?
I've seen people use a common sledgehammer, like a handheld mallet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever you can, whatever suits the purpose.
Mm-hmm. I've also seen people have just the cutout of a hammer symbol itself. It's not necessarily a physical hammer, but they do have, a hammer that could even be used as a wall hanging. You can use that as well. There's all kinds of ways to get creative with, your tools and your symbols and your altar pieces and things like that. So think outside the box. If you can find an old hammer at a thrift shop that you could spruce up and dedicate for that use and make it beautiful, by all means do that.
Or if you have maybe an old tool of your father's or your grandfather's,
Yes.
that would
Yes.
be amazing. A lot of people even just do the use the hammer sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Roy asks, Lane, how about possibly having a longer event once a year, maybe even a full week?
Ooh. Well, we definitely want to. We definitely want to do. We'll definitely do a longer event for our national event when we decide what that's going to be. We hope to have that figured out by the end of this month. Know what our national event is going to be going forward. We have a lot of great ideas, and it's hard to choose because we would like it to be all of them, of course. But we're working on that. A week, that's let's say that's a goal.
Whack-a-mole asks, how does personal revelation figure into Asatru faith? Well, I'm going to start out with that one, personal revelation. So a big part of a big part of my spirituality and my path on Asatru was discovering, what true north was to me, and that is the motto of Baldur's Hof, guided by true north. And a big part of being guided by true north is knowing yourself and having faith in yourself. One of the very first things that I did, and I continue to do as I evolve, is I will check in with myself. I will check in with, am I growing as a person? Am I better than I was last year? Is there anything that I'm doing that I need to correct, either for my gods, my church, my folk, or my family? Is there anything that I personally need to work on? As far as personal revelation, like I talked about with the lore, read your lore on a regular basis. Don't just read it one time. Don't read the Eddas one time and then put them away on a shelf. Don't use them as a tool to memorize and then, be able just to spout them off when you need them. What you need to really do is read them continually, read them often, and find out what it is that they mean to you. Find out what you read now that you missed before, and what does that actually mean, and how can you apply it to what you're going through at that time. You may find something that really hits home for you in a certain spot if you continually pick up that lore and read it. The same with the runes. You're always going to find something new the more you work with them. Lane?
Yeah, I would also add, as far as the Eddas, read multiple translations.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, you may not connect, but you could connect to another. You can get something out of one translation, get something else out of another, mm-hmm. that you may not find. It can affect you in different ways. I agree. As far as the retrospect, I do that. Like I said, looking back over the week, the month of the runes that I've pulled, and how did I implement that? How did I focus that energy, and focus on those ideas, those concepts in my life, and mm-hmm. and it's a spiral. It's a constant improvement. It's a cycle, but it's a cycle that has to keep going up.
Mm-hmm. Josh asks, often many of our men have expressed hardships starting families. Any thoughts about what things our fellows could be doing to put their best foot forward for the women of our folk? First of all, join the AFA. There are lots and lots of outstanding menfolk in the AFA that if you do need to work on yourself, they are excellent examples on how to be forward-facing as true, how to be better men, how to be strong men, how to better yourself. There's all kinds of outstanding role models for young men and any man who wants to improve himself within the AFA. Secondly, how to put your best foot forward is to be honest with yourself. Look for those things that you can improve upon, and when needed, find somebody to help you do that, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a Goði that could give you some sound advice, or whether that's a folk builder that can bring you into an event where you can meet a whole bunch of other men that you can rely on and that you can take advice from. Lane, what are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, and if you're already a member, we have our men's group and on MeWe that you can ask questions to. It's a space for our male folk to have these kind of conversations. The ladies have theirs as well, but this is we have ours to help our young men with these hurdles. Also, it doesn't appearance, as much as we are a spiritual organization, a church, and we focus on our faith, appearance matters. So take care of your appearance, not just how you dress, but your physical appearance. Be healthy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. SC asks, how many folks showed up for the dedication? Do you feel as if a good majority of those will continue to be monthly attendees for Nords Hof?
Several of them came from very far away, so I don't know that they will be regulars, but I do hope. I have heard from most of the people that attended that they definitely will be coming back. We're trying to get a final tally. We think we were in the mid 80s. Just trying to confirm some numbers here, but we'll have that to announce for the runestone. We were thinking it was in the mid 80s. Unfortunately, we had some people leave before we got our group photo, so it is not a full representation, but still a very healthy amount of people in our group photo.
SC also asks, how is growth happening in Florida? Is it booming since the Hof has been announced?
We've been growing steadily for the past couple of years, but yes, when the Hof was announced, we definitely had a growth spurt, without a doubt. And we continue that steady increase in growth.
SC also asks, what was one challenge during the preparation for dedication of the Hof itself that you faced?
Drive time.
Yeah.
We're all, I think, hour and a half is probably the closest person we had to the Hof. So we put a lot of miles, a lot of road miles, getting up there and back every weekend, and the last week, even during the week, going in and making sure everything was ready for the dedication.
Tanner asked, do you guys think the show would benefit from a set time limit? Haha. No, I do not. I will talk to Mr. Lane all day long. He is my friend and my fellow Gothar. We'll go as long as we have questions here. All right. Tracy asks, Lane, did someone already ask you about your patron deity yet? And are there a few gods you feel a better connection with?
But we did discuss that. When I originally found Asatru, I did lean towards Thor, and again that stemmed from the Heimskringla, because I knew that my maternal side was from Germany. So in the Heimskringla, it tells how Odin went on to Scandinavia, left his sons in Saxony to rule. So I did start with Thor at that point, but like I said, then I just tried to learn as much as I could about all the gods and worship them properly. I try to, if not worship them an equal amount of times, at least give them an equal amount of reverence.
Mm-hmm. Cellar Door asks, if it's question time, what importance would you put personal appearance and diction, and how do you think it could improve the AFA standing amongst the public in the future? Thanks. So I'll take that one. You should put your best foot forward in all you do, because we are our deeds. So you should you yourself are a personal representative of not just yourself, but your family, your ancestors, your gods. If you're a member of the AFA, you are a representative of the AFA, of your church. One thing I always remind my children of when they go somewhere, if they're leaving for a weekend or they're going out somewhere where I'm not around, I always remind them, remember who you belong to. Because you're not just representing me. You're not just representing yourself. You're representing your ancestors. You're representing your gods when you wear that hammer around your neck. Everything that you do shows your dedication and your worship of your gods and your support of your folk. How do you think it could improve the AFA standing amongst the public? It already has. You can definitely see the difference between members of the Asatru Folk Assembly and those that are not members of the Asatru Folk Assembly. We have a very specific way that we hold ourselves at Bloat. We always dressed in the best that we have when we represent our church or when we go before our gods. You don't see us out there trying to be offensive or stand out like a sore thumb just for the sake of standing out. So we want to always put our best foot forward because we are representations of our church and of our gods. Lane, what do you think, sir?
I think the point you made about that it already has is key. It really has. We stand. I think our membership stands head and shoulders above certainly any other people, any other groups that portend to follow our gods. and I would say we stand shoulder to shoulder, if not head and shoulders above any others. Our folk know that they have we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, because there are so many that would look to tear us down.
Mm-hmm. Otto asks, Brandy, why are you attracted to Saga? So I initially was very, very much pulled to Saga for a lot of reasons that are my own personal understanding of her. So my own personal UPG, but I've always seen her as reliable. You know, she's someone that is always there to lend an ear and listen. You know, she's always someone there to serve the Mead, to listen to the stories, that you can tell something to, that you can trust with that information. She's always been someone that I've always looked to for that. And that's just my personal understanding of her. And I've always tried to be that person, you know, to be that confidant if you need one, to be that person who will listen to your story and get it written down so that no one would ever forget your name. To be that person that will serve you that mead when you just need someone to talk to, or pour you that glass of wine, or make you that cup of tea. That's the person that I want to be. And I saw that in her. So I've always tried to emulate that with what my personal understanding of her was. Dawn asks, Githia Brandy, how do you think it's best to share Asatru with those like my sis who might see it as brosatru? My fault. All right, Dawn, first of all, you need to get your sister to an event. Contact your local folk builder and let them know that you would like to bring her as a guest, and get her around some normal and upright people that are not going to treat this as brosatru, because this is not brosatru. We don't do that in the Asatru Folk Assembly. My best advice to you on that is to show her pictures of all the women at our events. All of us ladies like to get together and take a big picture. If you go onto any of the district websites at any of the major events, you can probably see pictures of just our women and our children. The biggest thing that you need to share with her is that there are women here and that the women here matter. And I think that is probably going to be your first step. But my best advice after that is to take her to an event and show her what this really is. That's my best advice.
I would add, show the wonderful videos that Alsherjargothi makes of the events. Those really do a great job of giving you the feel, and you definitely see the women and the children running around and having fun.
Yes. Tanner asks, do you think camping could be a good way for folks to gather in areas not close to Hofs? Yes. So we do actually do that in quite a few areas around our Hofs. There is definitely campsites available for that. And we do actually have people camp at events, not necessarily at the Hof itself, but folk do gather together and camp together. There's also a lot of folk that actually have camping bloats or camping moots together where they do that. So that's definitely something that you can do. Lane, do you have any other recommendations for folks that just want to get together, you know, whether it's camping or holding a mood on their own? I know we get that question a lot, is how do I get people together? Do I have to be a folk builder to get people together?
Absolutely not. No, all you have to do is be interested in doing so. Folk Builder is more than happy to put you in contact with other members that have chosen to be a referral or be referred to in the application. So no, you do not have to be a folk builder to do this. We encourage everybody to hold gatherings. One of the, there's a ton of things. You can go bowling, get a bunch of people. We've had a bowling mood. Do something in the community. We adopt roads, but there's always cleanup activities, especially if you live near parks or waterways. We do an intercoastal cleanup once a year here in Florida to clean up trash along the intercoastal waterways. Something that we dedicate to Nords and Frega to help clean up Midgard. Let's do something like that. You get to do something. You'll meet somebody else, but you also get to together with your folk and do something productive and beneficial.
I know we said it before and several times during this almost 2 hours that we've been talking, Lane. I know we've said it many, many times. This is not a solitary religion. Get out there, contact your folk, get a folk builder, look them up on the websites, find your folk, find your community, and find your way home. That is going to be so much more enriching than trying to stay home and figure it out on your own. It's like Lane said previously, it really is a celebration. So get out there with your folk. If you don't have a folk builder within driving distance of you, contact them, see if they'll meet you in the middle, or get with them and have them get you in contact with people close by and see if you can get a moot going, whether it's just in the park or dinner at your home or whatever it is.
I had someone reach out to me that, there's nobody around me. There's nothing. They had literally had a member on the same street within a walking distance to them. And all we had to do is put them in contact, and then they were off and running.
Absolutely. So for those who have not yet applied for the AFA but need to, there is always that option to say, hey, I want to meet people near me, and we'll get you in touch with the folk near you so that you can meet your folk and get together. Tracy asked, the Filfot is one of our oldest and holiest symbols. Do you believe it is important to implement the use of such powerful ideograph, ignoring the backlash such usage causes? What's your take on it? I believe that is a holy symbol and a cultural symbol, and I believe that we should use it for the intent that it was created for.
Yep.
Lane,
use it with reverence. I think that's the key word. You're not going to put it on a T-shirt and go down to the mall. That's not being reverent. You treat it with the respect it deserves.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, if you're using it sheerly for the shock value of using it, then you need to reevaluate your use of it. But it is a holy symbol. It is our symbol. Use it in the reverence that it deserves. Use it with the intention that it deserves. Jason Gallagher asks, what are the different events that your kindred has hosted over the years in Florida?
Well, we've done the 12 major holidays. It's funny how our beach float came to be. I had been doing it in May, and then once I started getting, I took a hiatus due to extreme work conditions. And when I started getting involved again, I was asked to do a May Day bloat. And I started doing some research and realized that I had been doing that for years. But instead of Nerthus, we were honoring Njord because the sea was so important to our lives here. It impacts everything that we do in the state. So it was always there. But we'd always called it just the beach bloat, But after a while, it's like, well, hold on, this is just our May Day. It's nothing. It's just how we practice it, and that kind of goes to another question about heritage. That's kind of our heritage, the sea here in Florida. So we just incorporated that. But yeah, we do all the major holy days here in Florida. We've been doing them for over 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Nick asks, Lane, what was the Goði program like? What did you learn the most about? Anything you were surprised to learn? What are you looking forward to most as a Goði? Anything you're nervous about? Wow, Nick, that's a lot in one question. Go ahead, Lane, give that a go.
Well, what I learned the most about was myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very intense look at myself and what I knew, what my intentions were, and how I could be of benefit, and what my weaknesses were, where I needed to make improvement, and that is a never ending process. But the Gothar program put that into a very stark image for me to work on.
Mm-hmm.
What were the other questions?
Was there anything that surprised you?
No, I can't say that anything surprised me. I did learn a lot. There were some things there were some books that I hadn't read or even heard of, like Deep Ancestors. I think that was probably the most eye-opening. That I wasn't it was unique. It was something that I hadn't anticipated at all, but was very glad to have been brought to my attention.
Tracy asked, Lane, this weekend is a weekend off from the Hof. What, if anything, do you have planned this weekend? Undefined, what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, this weekend, sleep. I need some sleep. I joked that while we were getting the Hof ready that I wondered if my health insurance would put me in a medically induced coma for about a week, so I could just sleep and get some rest.
Recover, right?
Yes, but on my time off, I like to go out. I like to just get outside, unplug. I like to do yard work. I find yard work a very meditational thing. I'm in IT, so I'm constantly surrounded by screens and computers, and I got 4 different screens on my desk going at all times. So and that's not even counting my phone. So I like to unplug. I like to get offline, get out in nature. Saturday mornings are my favorite. I get out there before the neighborhood's awake, before there's anybody with the birds out there, and just sit out on the front porch and read and listen to the birds.
Yeah. All right. Whack-a-mole asks, are either of you familiar with Colin Cleary's work? He's a member of the Rune Guild. Don't know if he's a relationship with the AFA. His essays are pretty cerebral and worthwhile, I would say. Are you familiar with him, Lane? Because I am not overly familiar.
Very familiar. In fact, that's who I was mentioning. My tangential introduction to Heidegger was through Colin Cleary.
Okay. Jesse Parton, on behalf of Tabitha here, asks, how can we celebrate our holidays with our children? Lane, do you want to take that one first?
Well, I don't have any children, but I that's one of the things that I enjoy the most. Our kindred, most of our kindred has children. Having them at the events, it was amazing when one of our kindred members' daughter came up at our cigar bloat last year or earlier. No, it was last year, and she just walked out and said, "I'm Asatru." And I was like, Dad was so proud. I could just see it in his eyes, and that was just an amazing feeling. Just that just don't force it on them. Let them come to it. They'll come to it naturally because it is a natural thing. It's in them every bit as much as it's in us. Mm-hmm. And I think it might even be easier for them to connect to it because they don't have all the static of however many years on this earth you've been. They can connect to it right away.
Absolutely. Now, when we have our bigger national events, we do like to have, at Nords Hof, we do have a small children's bloat specifically with the kids and then some adults to help wrangle the kids in there. But we go through it very specifically. Right now, this is what we're going to do, and this is why. And the kids participate in their own little bloat. So we definitely like to do that. But crafts, age-appropriate crafts for the kids. Telling a story that kind of relates to that specific feast or holiday, and teaching them the story in a way that they can repeat it. So one thing that I found with smaller children, and I found with my own, you can read from a book all day long to them, but they understand it more and it means more to them when they can repeat that story to you. So even though you might want to read this, elaborate book on mythology, break it down into real simple terms. Because it's things that they can retain, and then they can tell that story themselves, and they're more likely to enjoy it, and they're more likely to be active if they can actually tell that story themselves, and they get more excited about it that way. So that's one thing that I like to do with the younger kids as well, is literally break that story down into very short pieces and very simple verbiage and words that they can use themselves and tell that story back to their parents or back to their little friends. So I like to do that as well. But age appropriate crafts are really, really great. Also on that, children's stumble is a lot of fun. It can be like herding cats sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. It's always wonderful to hear what comes out of a child's mouth, because you never know what it's going to be. We have a little horn that we use, and we use just some juice or grape juice or some sparkling juice of some sort, and take the kids through Sambal. Let them hail one of the gods. Let them hail one of their ancestors. And if they aren't familiar with their ancestors, let them hail all the ancestors. And hailing each other is always really cute. When they hail their teacher or their favorite pet is always a fun one to hear, or one of their siblings or their mom. You never know what's going to come out of their mouth, and it's always really fun and a lot of fun to hear.
That has to be magical. I can't wait to. We definitely need to do that at Nords Hof. That's amazing.
It's a lot of fun, especially if you get the kids together for their own Sambal. If you surround them by a bunch of adults, they're not as likely to open up. But if you surround them by a bunch of other kids, they're going to be a little more open to it. So that's going to be awesome.
Very neat.
Craft ideas for holidays. There's so many different things that you can do. If you're unsure on specifically for a specific feast, you can never go wrong with seasonal crafts, like for fall or for winter, summer or spring. You can never go wrong with those. And you can always have them make two of them, make one of the crafts for them, make the other craft for the god or goddess that you're giving the bloat to at that particular event. And let them make that offering. That's something that's meaningful for kids when they can actually participate in the events. Amber C asks, how would you define the AFA? What the AFA is to those who have never heard of Asatru? My definition would be a church dedicated to the worship of their gods, ancestors, and the support of their folk. Lane, what would you say?
Yeah, I would just say it's our ancestral religion. It's what our ancestors practiced. It's what they knew. It was an organic faith brought of our people for our people, and the tie into the ancestors always.
All right, Cellador asks, I've heard that Asatru is the religion that comes with homework. Do you think this could be a negative? Don't most people deeply crave a clear direction and could get lost in the academia? Yes and no. The academia has its place and it is important. The knowledge base is important to understand the culture, the traditions, and the lore. I think people can get lost in it, though. They can make that the priority, learning all they can and knowing the most, when the most important thing is the connection with your ancestors and with your gods, and actively practicing in that worship. The academia is really, really important, but it's not the most important thing. And I always caution people, don't get lost in the books. Don't let the books suck you in and never let you back out. Lane, what are your thoughts, sir?
I agree. I almost think that phrase itself, that we're a religion with homework, it almost seems to me that people say that to make it seem more exclusive than it is, to almost like, oh, you don't want to do this. It has homework. It's like, well, why would you even say that? Sure, we don't grow up with it, but nobody else says that. But there's more written about other religions than ours even. But nobody would ever say that, oh, you have to read these texts or these texts or these texts, unless you're maybe you're an Orthodox faith of some sort. But I've just that phrase has always puzzled me, that it's life is homework, and everything takes knowledge and learning and growing. To single out Asatru, it's never felt right to me.
Ketla asks, what about the book Deep Ancestors was so eye-opening? I haven't heard about that one. Lane, you just recently mentioned that book. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure. It really the origin story, if you will, of our faith, or at least a large part of it. Granted, there were gods and goddesses in Northern Europe before the Indo-Europeans arrived, but it really takes you back and shows how closely there's related and influenced what our faith would ultimately become. just how they lived. Like for instance, that they were nomadic. And they didn't have a word. They didn't have a word for pig because pigs couldn't travel. And just the etymology of some of the words that we use today, and the gods, and how they related to them. The whole looking to the east, to the rising sun. There's just so much rich history there that and how really the origin story too. Their origin story of the twins and the sacrifice for there to be to control chaos. It's not a big book, but he packs a lot into it.
It is a very good book. We're actually reading that right now with the Baldur's Hof ladies. And for those who look at it, if it's ever referred to as the Wheel and the Donkey book, this is what it looks like. This is the book he's talking about right there. So it is a very good book. There's a lot of good information just on the evolution of things and the progression of things. So definitely this is the book you're looking for right there. All right. Find it. It's not hard to find. I think I found mine on Amazon, I believe.
Yeah, no, that's still in print. Yeah, you do have to get by the introduction, though. It's a little.
It is.
I guess necessary in these days, but.
It is, yeah. Always remember to read everything at page value, right? Mm-hmm. All right, Mr. Lane, do you have anything else that you would like to add tonight before we wrap up?
I would like, having our Hof here. I've gone to Thor's Hof a couple of times. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of our Hofs. I'm looking forward to meeting the rest of our Gothar in person, and just growing our faith. I can't say how excited I am to be a part of this journey. Oh, somebody wants to say hi. Cat showed up. But yeah, I appreciate this opportunity, Brandy, to talk with everybody. I'm ready to get to work after a good weekend's sleep.
Oh, and you do have a visitor looking for your attention there. I see.
This is Snagglepuss.
Well, Blaine, I'm just going to congratulate you again just on your
nobody wants that view.
taking your oath as a Goði. That's not an easy path, and I commend you for it. And I appreciate the hard work that you've put into your church, and I really do look forward to what you can do in the future. And congratulations on the dedication of Nords Hof. I know that it was a long road, and I know how much work that you personally put into making that happen, as well as all the folk around you. So congratulations on both fronts.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you again.
All right. I think that'll wrap it up for tonight, folks. Make sure that you catch the next episode of Victory Never Sleeps, which is going to be same time, same place next Wednesday. And everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.